Tua's down. And Tua's down. This is exactly what you did not want to see happen.
It's a hip injury, and that's probably something that could be serious, so we just have to wait and see.
Tua suffered a dislocated right hip. He is not expected to play again this season.
What does all that mean? Let's bring in our injury analyst. It's Stefania Bell. We know about the dislocated hip, and now we're also hearing about this posterior wall injury. What is that?
What is that? Well, you have to start with considering what the hip joint looks like. And basically, the thigh bone at the top has like a ball shape.
Right.
And it rests in the socket of the hip. And it's a pretty tight fit. It takes a lot of force. We call this a high energy injury. You saw him land on the ground. His knee hits the ground with guys on top of him. And it basically bangs the hip out the backside. When it hits the posterior wall of the socket, that's where it causes the fracture. So it's basically bone on bone coming out the backside of the hip, causes a break. That's the fracture.
Dislocated hip, not great. Posterior wall injury, also not great. Combine the two together, how is that going to impact his timeline, his recovery, all that goes into him getting back onto the football field?
Well, as we say, every injury is unique. So there are a couple factors to take into consideration. One is the nature of the fracture. A more complex fracture, multiple fragments, unstable, that's more difficult to heal than a more simple fracture, one crack, for example. There's also the issue of cartilage, which lines the bones and protects the joint. That can get damaged during the dislocation, but sometimes it isn't. No cartilage injury is a better prognosis, but the main thing is the blood supply to the hip. There are some very tiny arteries that go to the bone, and they often get damaged with a dislocation. If that happens, it threatens the health of that bone. This is why most people think of Bo Jackson.
Yep.
That's what happened to him. But I will say this. The key to protecting the artery is reducing that hip, getting it back in place as quickly as possible. Tua's hip was reduced at the stadium, so they're hoping for good things. It's a wait and see. And, freak injury though it is, this happened before in Alabama.
Happened to C.J. Mosley.
C.J. Mosley, same team physician, Dr. Lyle Kane, same team. C.J. Mosley played the next year at Alabama, went on to be a first-round draft pick, plays in the NFL currently. So let's put a silver lining on it.
There you go. I'll just let her end it right there. That's Stefania Bell.
All right, spinning this forward now, our NFL draft analyst Mel Kiper Jr. is with us on SportsCenter AM, and Mel, too, has been the presumed top overall pick in 2020's draft for well over a year. He had the ankle injury last season, different ankle this season, and now the hip. How will this latest injury impact his stock?
Randy, first of all, our thoughts and prayers were to a sad day yesterday to see what happened. Now, I think when you look at the medical situation now, that has to play out. We don't have all the answers on that yet from what the hip situation is moving forward in terms of the rehab, but we do know both ankles, slight knee, lower extremity injuries over the last couple of years have obviously affected Tua and impacted how teams will view him moving forward, especially when you think about Joe Burrow, LSU, with a great year he's had. He's moved up to that #1 quarterback spot, up near the top of the draft board. Then Tua was right in with Justin Herbert from Oregon, who's been red hot of late. A big game last night. He's on a roll. He's got weapons coming back to that offense. So, and he's a big, strong, rocket-arm quarterback. So now you look at Tua. Yeah, he's not 6'3", doesn't have the big-time arm strength, and now the durability concern is obviously real, and it has been for a period of time because of both of the ankle injuries, Randy. So this kind of complicates matters, and obviously when you're competing with two other quarterbacks who are highly rated, it puts you right now third in line instead of #1 or #2 when you project forward to late April.
All right, it's going to be fascinating to see how this process unfolds in the offseason. That's Mel Kiper Jr. with the insight for us on SportsCenter AM.
Thank you.
Well, let's get to the NBA.